His response proved love sees beyond the past. She said she wasn't worthy. The twin suns of Aurora Mesa hung low over the jagged cliffs, painting the desert in shades of orange and violet. The air shimmered with heat, though the ground crackled with frost in the shadowed canyons. Dust swirled around the outpost like restless spirits, and the faint hum of hovering engines filled the silence between the rocks. Out here, on the farthest edge of the galaxy, life was harsh, and trust was rarer than water. Rafe Calder leaned forward on his hover horse, his eyes scanning the horizon. He was a man of few words, but every gesture spoke of experience. Years of chasing rogue androids, bounty thieves, and merciless outlaws had hardened him. His leather duster flapped behind him, worn and scorched at the edges, telling a story that words never could. On his hip rested a plasma revolver, its barrel etched with tiny scars from battles long past. Ahead, a plume of dust marked the edge of the small trading outpost. It was a settlement built from scavenged metal and reinforced glass, neon signs flickering above wooden stalls, buzzing faintly against the orange sky. Merchants shouted their prices, children laughed despite the dangers lurking just beyond the mesa, and the occasional hover cart rattled along the cracked pathways. It was a place of life, but life here was fragile. Fragile enough to snap at any moment. Rafe's gaze caught movement near the central market. A woman was arguing with a merchant, her hands raised, but her voice carried a sharp edge of frustration. She was smaller than most, with hair tied back in a messy braid and a streak of silver running through it. Her eyes were stormy, guarded, and yet there was a flicker of courage in them. This was Lyra Voss. Lyra had lived on the fringes of society for too long. Once a pilot for the corporate fleets, her life had taken a dark turn during a failed experiment that left her blamed for a disaster on the mining colony of Viridian 9. Survivors whispered her name like a warning, and the corporate council had stripped her of her license and privileges. Since then, she had roamed the frontier alone, hiding her identity, earning a living smuggling goods, and trying to stay invisible. She trusted no one, least of all herself. Rafe watched as Lyra turned sharply, scanning the crowded market as if expecting danger at any moment. He had learned over the years that people like her often carried a storm inside, rogue, skilled, and dangerous if cornered, but he also sensed a quiet strength that few noticed. He dismounted, the hover horse lowering itself to the cracked ground with a soft hiss. His boots crunched against the dusty stone as he walked toward her. Lyra noticed him, her hand instinctively brushing against the blaster at her side. "You're not from around here," she said, her tone defensive but wary. "Not really," Rafe replied, keeping his voice calm. "Name's Rafe Calder. I'm looking for information about rogue androids." Her eyes narrowed. "That's what everyone says. Why should I help you?" "Because they're dangerous. And if you don't help, they might come for you next." There was a pause. Lyra's eyes flickered with uncertainty. She had seen men like him before, men who claimed to fight for justice but only sought profit. But something in his stance, the quiet confidence in his voice, made her hesitate. Perhaps it was the same instinct that had kept her alive on the frontier for years. "All right," she finally said, "but I'm not making this easy, and I'm not responsible if you get killed." Rafe smiled faintly. "Not looking for easy, just looking for survival." The uneasy alliance was formed. Rafe followed her through the narrow streets of the outpost, past neon signs buzzing with soft blue light, past vendors selling energy rations and repair parts for broken hovercrafts. He noticed how she moved. Quick, precise, and alert, every step calculated to avoid threats, every glance covering angles. She had the instincts of a predator, sharpened by years of mistrust. They reached the outskirts of the outpost, where a rocky canyon opened to a wide plain. Rafe's hover horse hovered slightly above the ground as he scanned the landscape. In the distance, a column of smoke spiraled from a mining camp, a sign of trouble. Rogue androids were raiding settlements with increasing frequency, and these machines weren't simple servitors. They had learned to think, adapt, and hunt. Lyra's eyes darkened. "That's my old route," she said softly. "I used to supply that camp before everything went wrong." To her, "You don't have to talk about it." "I have to," she replied, her voice tight. "Because if I don't, I can't move forward. I can't be trusted, not even by myself." Rafe nodded, silently acknowledging the weight of her words. He had seen too many people run from their past, letting guilt fester until it destroyed them. He didn't judge. He simply waited, letting her speak in her own time. They rode toward the smoking camp, the canyon walls echoing the distant roar of engines and faint metallic clanging. As they approached, they saw the aftermath. Buildings partially destroyed, mining droids scattered, and rogue androids patrolling the wreckage. Lyra's jaw tightened, but she didn't hesitate. She readied her blaster, and Rafe adjusted the plasma revolver on his hip. The androids moved in coordinated patterns, scanning for movement. Rafe noted their efficiency, too precise to be random. Someone had reprogrammed them, giving them intelligence beyond basic survival programming. Lyra spotted a weakness in their patrol route and signaled to Rafe. They approached from the canyon edge, using rocks for cover, shadows hiding them from detection. Rafe whispered, "We'll take them one by one. Stay calm, stay quiet." Lyra nodded. "I can do that." Her hand shook slightly, but it was with anticipation, not fear. She had spent years avoiding fights she couldn't win. Now she had a purpose again. The first android stumbled into their trap, neutralized silently by Rafe's precise shot. Lyra followed, disabling 2 more with swift strikes. The action was tense, fluid, and efficient. Neither spoke much, but a silent understanding passed between them. Both knew the dangers, both respected each other's skill, and both understood that survival depended on trust. As the last android fell, the canyon returned to an uneasy quiet. Dust swirled around them, and the twin suns dipped closer to the horizon, casting long shadows across the scorched ground. Lyra exhaled deeply, lowering her blaster. "You weren't lying," she admitted. "You're good." Rafe simply nodded. "You're not bad yourself." "Better than most I've seen in a long time." Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line, unsure how to respond. She had spent so long believing she was unworthy of praise, unworthy of trust, and unworthy of connection. Rafe's presence challenged that belief without a word. The canyon seemed almost peaceful after the skirmish, but both knew it was temporary. Rogue androids were only the beginning. Something or someone was orchestrating these attacks, and they would need more than skill to survive the challenges ahead. As night fell, Rafe and Lyra set up a temporary camp near the canyon's edge. The stars above shone brighter than they ever had on Aurora Mesa, unpolluted by the dust of civilization. Lyra stared up at them, a faint smile breaking through the shadows in her mind. "You think people like me ever get a second chance?" she asked quietly, almost to herself. Rafe looked at her, his eyes steady and unwavering. "People like you? They don't just get second chances. They make them. And sometimes the right person will see it all and still choose to stand by you." Lyra looked away, unsure if she believed him. But for the first time in years, she felt a small spark of hope, a feeling that maybe the frontier wasn't just about survival. Maybe it was also about finding someone who could see beyond the scars, beyond the past, and still care. The desert night grew colder, but the two of them sat side by side, hover horses tethered nearby, the silence between them no longer tense but filled with potential. Somewhere deep in the shadows, the faint hum of rogue androids reminded them that danger was far from over. Yet, for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to think that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in facing it. The frontier had ignited, not with fire or war, but with a spark of trust, fragile and bright, ready to grow in a world of dust and starlight. The morning sun rose over Aurora Mesa, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. Dust sparkled in the pale light like tiny stars, and the wind carried a faint hum of distant machinery. Rafe Calder and Lyra Voss had broken their temporary camp, saddled their hover horses, and prepared to track the rogue androids deeper into the canyon network. Rafe's eyes scanned the horizon carefully. The dust storms of Aurora Mesa were unpredictable, hiding dangers that could strike without warning. "Keep your eyes open," he said, his voice calm but firm. "They're organized, smarter than the usual scraps we deal with." Lyra adjusted the straps on her shoulder harness, feeling the weight of her blaster and her nerves at the same time. Her mind replayed the attacks she had survived before, the mistakes she had made, and the moments she had lost people because she hesitated. She still carried the scars of her past like a shadow that stretched long over her present. She didn't want to trust anyone, not even herself sometimes. "I know," she said, her voice quiet. "I've been through worse." Rafe didn't respond immediately. Instead, he simply gave her a glance, steady and understanding. That glance carried a message stronger than any words. "I see you. Not just your past, who you are now." Lyra forced herself to look away, unsure what to make of that small spark of trust. The canyon walls began to narrow as they moved further in, creating a natural corridor. The sound of their hover horses' engines echoed off the cliffs, blending with the distant rumble of machinery. Ahead, the wreckage of a mining drone lay twisted and burned, metal melted and scorched as if by fire. Rafe crouched behind a rock, signaling for Lyra to stop. "They're here," he whispered, "and they're waiting." Lyra's heart tightened. She could see the rogue androids, sleek and polished despite the desert dust, moving in precise formations. Their glowing blue optics scanned the terrain like predators assessing prey. It was clear someone had reprogrammed them for efficiency, giving them strategy and coordination that normal machines didn't have. "Let's split them," Rafe said, lowering his plasma revolver. "I'll take the left. You cover the right. Quick, precise shots. We can't afford mistakes." Lyra nodded, steadying her blaster. Her palms were sweaty, but she focused on the rhythm of breathing and movement she had trained herself in during countless skirmishes. Fear was familiar, but control was power. As they advanced, the first android turned sharply, detecting movement. Its optics flashed red. Lyra fired, hitting its joint mechanism, and it collapsed with a hiss of escaping gas. Another android spun toward her, and Rafe's shot cut it down in one precise blast. They moved like shadows, silent yet deadly, covering each other instinctively. But then Lyra froze for a moment. Her mind replayed the memory of a mission gone wrong years ago, an experiment where she had miscalculated the trajectory of a cargo drop, accidentally killing civilians in the mining colony of Viridian 9. The memory was sharp, accusing. "You're not worthy. You'll never be trusted. You'll never be enough." Rafe noticed the hesitation. "Lyra," he called softly, moving closer. Her hands shook slightly as she raised her blaster. I can't," she whispered. "Not like this. Not now. I've failed before. People have died because of me. I'm not worthy." Rafe crouched beside her, eyes steady. "You're not your past," he said firmly. "Not what happened before. Not the mistakes you made. Right now, all that matters is here, this moment, and the choices you make today. You're not alone." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Still, the rogue androids weren't waiting for her to heal. They were advancing, moving closer with dangerous precision. She nodded, taking a deep breath. "All right," she whispered. "I'll try." The next few moments moved in a blur. Blaster fire echoed off the canyon walls, sparks flying as metal clashed with metal. Lyra moved with surprising speed, disabling one android after another, each shot steady and precise. Rafe covered her flank, taking down threats before they could reach her. The synergy between them was unspoken but real, like two dancers moving in perfect harmony. Finally, the last android in the immediate area fell, collapsing against the rocks. Lyra's chest heaved as adrenaline surged through her, and she looked at Rafe with wide eyes. "I did it," she said, voice trembling with a mix of relief and disbelief. Rafe offered her a small approving nod. "Yeah, you did. And you did it well." Lyra swallowed hard, the words hitting her in a way she wasn't expecting. Praise without judgment, without pity. It was foreign, but it felt right. She wanted to believe it, to let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, she could move past the shadows of her history. But the quiet didn't last long. From deeper within the canyon, a low mechanical hum began, rising steadily into a roar. The ground vibrated slightly beneath their feet. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "That's not just more rogue androids," she muttered. "Something bigger is coming." Rafe's jaw tightened. "Agreed, and I have a feeling we're walking into the center of it." They moved carefully, following the sound through the twisting canyons. As they rounded a bend, they saw it, a massive transport drone heavily armored and bristling with automated weapons. Its engines glowed with a menacing red, and smaller androids swarmed around it like a hive protecting their queen. "This is worse than I thought," Lyra said, her voice tight. "They're organized. Someone is controlling them." Rafe scanned the area, calculating their approach. "We can't take it head on. We'll need to flank it, distract it, and get in close to disable the control unit." Lyra nodded, though fear pressed at her chest. "And if we fail?" "We won't," Rafe said simply, his gaze steady. "We don't get to think about failure. Only the next step." The two of them crouched behind a rocky outcrop, observing the drone and the androids surrounding it. They noticed patterns, rhythms in the movements, pauses that left openings. Lyra studied them intently, her mind analyzing and predicting. For the first time in years, she felt useful, capable. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged. "We'll hit from here," she said, pointing to a narrow ravine leading behind the transport. I can take the rear controls and shut it down while you handle the perimeter. Rafe smiled faintly, impressed. Good. Let's move. As they approached, Lyra hesitated for a fraction of a second. Memories of her past failures threatened to overwhelm her, but Rafe's steady presence beside her reminded her that she was not alone. She inhaled deeply, centering herself, and pressed forward. The attack was swift and precise. Lyra darted toward the drone's rear panel, working quickly to override the system. Sparks flew as she hacked the control unit, sweat running down her face. Rafe covered her, taking down rogue androids with calm precision, his movements fluid and deadly. Finally, with a loud hiss and a cascade of sparks, the drone shuddered and collapsed. The surrounding androids froze, their programming disrupted. The canyon fell into silence once more, save for the hum of distant winds and the heavy breathing of the two survivors. Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted. Rafe knelt beside her, offering a hand. "You did it," he said quietly. "You saved lives today. You were more than enough." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes, not from sadness, but from relief and release. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe she had value, that she could make a difference despite her past. She looked at Rafe, a small smile forming. "Thank you," she whispered. Rafe shrugged as if it were no big deal, but his eyes were warm. "Don't thank me. Just keep going. There's more ahead." Lyra nodded, knowing he was right. The rogue androids were only part of the problem. Someone, or something, was orchestrating this chaos, and the real test was still to come. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of the canyon battle, Lyra felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. The shadows of her past had followed her this far, but she realized they did not define her, and with Rafe at her side, she was beginning to believe that perhaps she could face whatever came next. The desert stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, mystery, and challenges. But for the first time in a long time, Lyra felt ready. The frontier had shadows, yes, but in those shadows she had found a reason to keep moving forward. And Rafe Calder, silent and steadfast, had become the first person in years to see the woman she was becoming, not the mistake she had made. The twin suns of Aurora Mesa had set, leaving a pale violet glow over the jagged canyons. Dust hung in the air, catching the last rays of light like tiny sparks. Rafe Calder and Lyra Voss moved cautiously through the narrow paths, their hover horses gliding quietly over the cracked stone. The canyon was quiet now, but both knew it was only the calm before another storm. Rafe led the way, plasma revolver ready, eyes scanning every shadow. Lyra followed close, her blaster at the ready, mind alert for anything unusual. Silence was rare in these canyons. Rogue androids, scavengers, and worse could strike without warning. Yet, something felt different tonight. A tension in the air that made the hairs on her neck stand up. "They're hiding something," she murmured, her eyes flicking over a nearby ridge. "This attack, it's too organized for just rogue androids. Someone is controlling them. Someone smart." Rafe nodded. "I've seen patterns like this before. Someone wants us to follow them into a trap." Lyra glanced at him. "Then we need a plan." Rafe gave her a small, approving nod. "We do. We flank the ridge, move slowly, and keep an eye on the drone signals. If they notice us, we fight smart, not fast. Agreed?" "Agreed," she said, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Even with fear pressing against her chest, she felt alive in a way she hadn't for years. She had survived before, but now she fought not just to live, she fought to reclaim herself. The ridge was steep, the path narrow, rocks loose under the hover horse's weight. They moved silently, every step measured. The faint hum of rogue androids grew louder, accompanied by a strange mechanical vibration that resonated through the canyon floor. Rafe signaled for a halt and crouched behind a jagged boulder. "There," he whispered, pointing. Down below, a heavily armed transport drone rested on a flat plateau, surrounded by clusters of smaller androids. Its engines glowed red in the dim light, and above it, a hovering command unit pulsed with a blue energy core. The drone's weapons swiveled slowly, scanning for intruders. Lyra's stomach tightened. "That's the main base, isn't it?" Rafe nodded. "Looks like it. And whoever controls that unit controls the rogue androids in the area. We take that out, the rest will fall into chaos." Lyra swallowed hard. "And if we fail?" "We won't fail," Rafe said simply, his tone calm, unwavering. "We plan. We act. That's all we can do." She nodded, though doubt still lingered. The shadows of her past whispered reminders of failure and mistakes. But Rafe's presence beside her steadied her. For the first time in years, she felt that maybe she could face her fears. They split their approach. Rafe moved along the canyon edge, using rocks and dust clouds as cover, while Lyra crept through a narrow ravine that led to the drone's rear access. The hum of the engines grew louder as they got closer, and her pulse quickened. This was no longer a simple skirmish. It was a test of skill, courage, and trust. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she approached the access panel. She had done similar hacks before, but this was different. The control unit pulsed with energy, almost alive, and she felt a flicker of panic. What if I fail again? Rafe's voice came through the small communicator. Focus, Lyra. You can do this! Just like before. She took a deep breath, centering herself. The memory of Viridian 9 surfaced, but instead of fear, she used it as fuel. She had failed before, yes, but this time, she had learned. She could make a difference now. Her fingers danced across the panel, overriding security protocols, rerouting energy flows, and finally forcing the core offline. Sparks flew and the drone shuddered violently, its weapons locking down. Lyra stumbled back, heart racing as Rafe shot 2 rogue androids attempting to intercept her. You did it, he called, running to cover her as the drone's systems went offline. Lyra exhaled sharply, leaning against the rock. I did. But the victory was brief. A low rumble shook the canyon, and from above, a figure appeared, tall, armored, and human-shaped, but augmented with cybernetic implants. Its eyes glowed red, scanning the terrain with deadly precision. It was clear this was the one controlling the rogue androids, and it had been waiting for them all along. Rafe's jaw tightened. Looks like we found the mastermind. The figure raised its arm, and a wave of energy shot toward them, narrowly missing. Lyra rolled to the side, firing at the cybernetic figure, but her shots barely scratched the armor. The command unit above the drone reactivated partially, sending a fresh wave of smaller androids toward them. Rafe grabbed Lyra's arm. Move, we can't fight them all at once. They retreated to a narrow pass, fighting off androids as they went. Sparks flew, lasers hissed, and the canyon echoed with the sounds of metal and energy. Despite exhaustion, both moved with precision, covering each other instinctively. Every step was life or death, and trust between them deepened with each passing moment. Lyra glanced at Rafe. I thought I was worthless, that no one could ever trust me again. He didn't hesitate. I don't care about your past. I care about now. About what you can do.
And right now, you're stronger than most people I've met.
Her chest tightened at his words. She wanted to believe him, and maybe, for the first time, she did. She felt the weight of her guilt lighten, replaced by determination and the drive to survive, not just for herself, but for Rafe and the people who depended on her. They reached a rocky outcrop overlooking the plateau where the cybernetic figure stood. Lyra signaled, and Rafe understood immediately. I'll take the left flank, he whispered. You handle the right, get in close, and disable the core. I'll hold them off. Lyra nodded, heart pounding. She approached the drone, weaving through debris and fallen rocks, every movement calculated. She reached the rear panel again, fingers flying over the controls, overriding systems, and rewriting power. Sparks erupted as the drone convulsed violently. The cybernetic figure noticed her and turned, advancing with lightning speed. Lyra barely had time to fire, and even then the shots only slowed it down slightly. Rafe jumped from cover, landing a precise shot that staggered the figure, giving Lyra the crucial second she needed. With a final push, the control unit shut down completely, and the drone collapsed, sending a shockwave that knocked both Lyra and Rafe to the ground. The smaller androids, now without guidance, powered down or fled into the canyon. Panting and covered in dust, Lyra looked at Rafe. We did it. Rafe extended a hand, helping her to her feet. Yeah, we did. His eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. You didn't just survive, Lyra. You fought. You made a difference. Don't let anyone or anything tell you otherwise. Tears welled in her eyes. For years, she had carried the weight of her past, believing herself unworthy. But in this moment, with the canyon quiet except for the settling dust, she realized she had value. She had courage. She had skill. And perhaps she had something more. A chance to be trusted, to be seen, and even to be loved. The cybernetic figure lay unmoving nearby, its glowing eyes fading. Rafe checked quickly to ensure it was neutralized. No more surprises. For now, he said, though both knew the danger was far from over. Lyra shook her head, smiling faintly. I think I can finally face what's coming next. Rafe nodded. Good, 'cause the frontier never rests, and neither do the people who want to control it. But we do what we can, together. Lyra glanced at him, a sense of quiet hope filling her chest. For the first time in years, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could leave the shadows of her past behind. The canyon had been a battlefield, but it had also been a proving ground, a place where she had rediscovered herself. They mounted their hover horses, the soft hum blending with the distant sounds of the desert night. The stars above Aurora Mesa shone brilliantly, untouched by city lights, and Lyra allowed herself a rare moment to gaze upward. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the galaxy, there was a life beyond fear, beyond guilt, and beyond mistakes. And now she could chase it. Rafe rode beside her, silent and steady, a constant presence she had come to rely on. He had seen her at her best and her worst, and still he had not wavered. Lyra realized then that trust, and perhaps even love, could grow in the harshest places, even on the frontier. The desert stretched before them, full of danger, mystery, and challenges. But now, for the first time, Lyra felt ready to face it. The rogue androids were gone, the mastermind defeated, but the journey was far from over, and for the first time, she didn't feel alone. The stars gleamed above, steel and dust beneath their feet, and the two riders disappeared into the horizon, ready to face the trials of the frontier together. The dawn came slowly over Aurora Mesa, painting the jagged cliffs in soft orange and pale pink. The twin suns barely broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert floor. Dust swirled in faint clouds, stirred by the low winds that whispered through the canyon. Rafe Calder and Lyra Voss rode side by side, their hover horses gliding smoothly over the rocky terrain. For the first time in days, the canyon felt calm, but both knew better than to trust calm completely. The rogue androids and their mastermind had been defeated, yes, but someone, or something, was always waiting, always watching. Aurora Mesa was a frontier planet, wild and dangerous, and peace was never permanent. Lyra rode a little straighter than usual, the weight of her past seeming lighter now. She had faced her fears, fought beside Rafe, and survived battles she had thought impossible. For the first time in years, she felt capable, valuable, and, dare she admit it, worthy. "You're quiet this morning," Rafe said, his voice low and steady, breaking the silence. Lyra glanced at him, a small smile forming. "I'm thinking about what we've done, what I've done. I don't know if I've ever felt this, free." Rafe nodded without speaking, eyes scanning the horizon. His jaw tightened slightly. He knew that Aurora Mesa never stayed free for long. Trouble always returned. But he also knew that this moment, however fleeting, was theirs, and he refused to let fear ruin it. They reached the edge of a cliff overlooking the sprawling desert plain below. The outpost where Lyra had once worked was visible in the distance, smoke curling from chimneys and neon lights flickering faintly in the morning haze. The place had survived the rogue android attack thanks to them. And yet standing there, Lyra felt a pang of guilt. She remembered all those she had failed in the past. "I thought," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly, "that I would never be trusted again, that no one could believe in me after what happened on Viridian 9. Rafe turned to her, his eyes unwavering. "I don't care about the past, Lyra. I care about the person standing here today. Not mistakes you made years ago, not what others say about you. Just you." Her chest tightened. For so long she had believed she was unworthy of anything good. Trust, respect, friendship, maybe even love. But here was Rafe, saying quietly, firmly, that she had value. That she mattered. She wanted to believe him, and slowly she did. "Thank you," she whispered. I think I needed to hear that." Rafe gave a faint smile. "Good. Because you're not done yet. The frontier is bigger than these canyons, and we've got a lot more to see." Lyra nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in years. She had spent her life running, from mistakes, from judgment from herself. But with Rafe beside her, she felt like she could finally face the world without fear. Their hover horses moved smoothly down the canyon path, dust rising gently around them. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, dotted with mining colonies, abandoned wrecks, and distant smoke plumes. Every corner held potential danger, but also opportunity. The frontier was alive, wild, and untamed, and so were they. As they rode, Lyra's mind wandered to the people she had left behind. Friends she had lost, enemies she had fought, lives that had depended on her choices. The memories no longer weighed her down. Instead, they reminded her why she fought, why she survived, why she needed to keep moving forward. Rafe noticed her thoughtful silence. "You've changed," he said softly, almost a question. Lyra smiled faintly. "I think I've started to see myself differently." I'm not the same person who made those mistakes, and I don't want to be." He nodded, eyes ahead. "Good, because the frontier will test you again and again. But if you keep moving forward, you'll survive, and you'll thrive." They reached a wide plateau high above the desert. The wind carried the faint scent of ozone from distant storms and the soft hum of the desert night fading behind them. Rafe paused, looking out over the horizon. "Look at that," he said, voice calm but full of wonder.
"All of this. The frontier is ours to ride, Lyra."
"But it's also ours to protect. People need us. They might not know it yet, but they do." Lyra followed his gaze, letting herself take in the vast beauty of Aurora Mesa. The desert wasn't just harsh and dangerous. It was alive, full of possibility, full of challenges that could shape them into something stronger. And for the first time, she felt ready to face them. "I want to help," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I don't want to run anymore. Not from the past. Not from who I am now." Rafe turned to her, expression steady. "Then don't. Stand by me, Lyra. We'll face it all together." For a long moment, neither spoke. The canyon stretched in silence beneath them, the dust settling as the twin suns rose higher. Lyra felt a spark of hope she hadn't allowed herself in years. With Rafe beside her, maybe she could finally believe in herself. Suddenly, the faint hum of engines sounded from the distance. Rafe stiffened, scanning the horizon. "We're not alone," he said. "But it doesn't look like trouble. At least, not yet." A small hovercraft approached, carrying a convoy of miners from the outpost below. They had come to thank Rafe and Lyra for protecting their homes from the rogue androids. Lyra felt a wave of emotion, gratitude, relief, and pride. For the first time, she felt recognized, not just for her skills, but for who she was. One of the miners stepped forward, a young woman with dirt-streaked hair and a tired but hopeful smile.
"We heard what you did,"
she said softly. "Thank you. For saving us, we owe you our lives." Lyra looked at Rafe, then back at the woman. She had spent so long believing herself unworthy, but hearing those words, seeing the lives she had touched, she felt a shift inside her. Maybe she really did have value. Maybe she could be trusted. Maybe she could even belong somewhere again. Rafe clapped her lightly on the shoulder, giving a small, approving nod. "See?" he said quietly. "You're not alone. You've got people who believe in you. And you've got me." Lyra swallowed hard, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. She had spent years running, hiding, and believing herself unworthy of trust or love. But now, standing on the plateau, surrounded by the rising sun and the lives she had helped protect, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. Hope. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, the desert full of possibility. Lyra realized that the frontier wasn't just about survival. It was about choices, about courage, about standing for something bigger than herself. And, with Rafe beside her, she knew she could face whatever came next. They mounted their hover horses once more, the desert wind whipping past them. Lyra's chest felt light, her heart steady. The past was behind her, but it had not defined her. She had learned from it, survived it, and grown stronger because of it. "Where to next?" she asked, voice steady, though tinged with excitement. Rafe smiled faintly, eyes scanning the distant canyons. "Wherever the frontier calls. We ride into the unknown, protect those who need it, and keep moving forward. That's our life now." Lyra nodded, gripping the reins tightly. The twin suns reflected off her braided hair, glinting like sparks in the morning light. For the first time, she felt ready, not just to survive, but to live. The desert stretched out before them, steel beneath their feet, dust in the wind, stars fading in the morning sky. Rafe and Lyra rode together, silhouettes against the glowing horizon, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The frontier was vast, dangerous, and full of mystery, but it was theirs to explore. And as they disappeared into the rising sun, Lyra allowed herself one final thought, soft and honest, whispered to the wind, "I am worthy. I am alive. And I am not alone." The canyon echoed with the faint hum of their hover horses, dust swirling behind them. The twin suns climbed higher, lighting the desert world in gold and pink. Aurora Mesa was wild, unpredictable, and unforgiving, but it had given them something rare, a chance to start again, together, beyond the shadows of the past. The frontier awaited, and Rafe and Lyra, side by side, were ready to ride.